Hello, weary traveller. Today we wake up together in a medieval hamlet, one of those places time forgot. But the mud didn't. A place where everyone has too much work, too little food, and a collective destiny of itching and resignation. The body complains, but the village continues. It is just another day identical to all the others. But this time, we will view the same dawn through several different sets of eyes, all tired, all trapped in the same cycle of hunger, faith, and routine. A peasant who plants what he never eats, a merchant who sells what he doesn't have, a priest preaching patience with the voice of a man who has lost his own, a peasant woman praying for peace and finding silence, a boy running because he still can, and a bell tolling to warn that the day has begun and nothing will change. But easy now. Before sleep arrives, or the Middle Ages takes you away, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and comment where you're listening from and what time it is there. I like knowing who is on the other side listening to these medieval curiosities that nobody asked for, but everyone enjoys. And hit the bell so you don't miss any stories from Sleep with a Tired Story, because here, sleep arrives before the end. And click the hype button too. It helps this tired content reach more sleepy souls who still believe in a good bedtime story. Now turn off the light, adjust your pillow, and come with me. You wake before the light, not because you are disciplined, but because the cold pokes through the straw and your spine complains as if it had an opinion. The straw moves too. The lice have been up for a long time. The roof is a triangle of crooked wood. Every crack gives passage to the wind, to the dust, and to reality. The bed, if we can call it that, is a pile of straw with its own personality. It itches, prickles, and holds memories of all the nights you promised you'd change it and never did. The smell is an indecisive mix of yesterday's smoke, damp leather, and withered cabbage. You can also identify the house's exclusive perfume, medieval sweat with notes of no shower. The first decision of the day is whether to get up or negotiate 5 more seconds without moving a muscle. 5 seconds win. After that, the cold defeats you. You sit up slowly and feel the straw reorganize itself in protest. Your feet search for the floor, find packed earth, and your soles tremble just imagining what the day promises. Your hand finds the heavy wool coat, always a little wet even on dry days. It is a reverse miracle. Instead of water turning into wine, fabric turns into dew. You breathe through your mouth, so as not to fight with the ambient smell. The air enters harsh, tasting of soot and dawn. Outside, tomorrow hasn't decided if it will show up yet. Inside here, the house's cough has already begun its liturgy. You stand up slowly, like someone carrying an invisible sack of wheat. It isn't drama, it's routine. You push the wood, the wind cuts through your shirt, and the courtyard appears with that same old face. Mud, footprints, and a puddle that refuses to dry since spring. The sky looks like grey flour, sifted by someone who has given up on quality. The first sound of the day comes from the stable. The animal complains with reason. Nobody likes waking up to work on an empty stomach. But here, nature accepts no requests. You hook the bucket on your arm, feel the handle bite, and go. Your hands meet the cold iron, and remember that your skin turned to leather a long time ago. Pain became habit. Habit became silence. The milk hits the bucket in a rhythm that always sounds like music when you are very tired. Today it sounds like music. It is official. You are very tired. The stall delivers the second part of your morning perfume. The straw is damp, and the air has that acidic note that warns you it's going to be a strong day. The beast chewing, you milking, life happening in a time signature that books aren't interested in recording. Nobody sings about this. And if they sing, they lie. The pile of hay in the corner is shrinking, no need to check. Seeing the ground appear is enough. You separate a portion that isn't enough, but you pretend it is. Then you wonder if you can fool time too. You can't. Thinking is still the only free luxury in the kitchen, the fire corner that tries to be a kitchen. Your wife stirs the pot with the patience of someone who has already understood destiny and decided not to argue. The usual broth, the leftovers from yesterday, a handful of whatever the field decided not to kill. The smell is simple, and simple around here is the highest praise. "Sleep a little more," you whisper, knowing she won't. She looks sideways, measures your face, measures the bucket, measures the possibilities, takes the eggs and says, "Don't come back with a fool's price." The "don't come back" already contains everything. The market, the merchant, the argument you always lose out of exhaustion. You respond with a grunt. It is the closest thing to hope one can emit at this hour. The boy moves in a corner covered with a cloth that was once two cloths and is now reincarnated as a patch. He snores lightly, that noise of someone who hasn't yet learned to fear debt collectors. Lucky him. Ignorance is a blanket warmer than wool. For now, you swallow 2 spoonfuls of the soup under construction. The wooden spoon picks up a fixed taste of smoke that no broth can defeat. It works. That is all that matters. The piece of dark, stubborn bread demands negotiation. You soak it, wait, yield, chew. The tooth complains but accepts. Sometimes it doesn't accept. Today it was diplomatic. The outside wall is green in some spots. Mold. You promise yourself you will scrape that off when the harvest improves and when the sun finds courage. 2 promises that have repeated for months. Repeating promises has become a private religion. At least it's free. The basket is ready. 6 eggs, 2 onions, a half-dozen turnips with self-esteem, and a head of cabbage that looks more melancholic than the rest. You look, do the math in silence, and arrive at the result. Little. The usual little, but you need the salt and a handful of fabric. And maybe a nail if there's leftover. The if laughs in your face. You pretend you didn't hear. The path to the village is short and long at the same time. Your legs know every hole, every route, every place where the mud decides to suck boots. The cold bites your nose and leaves your eyes full of water. A free sorrow nobody asked for. The field looks enormous when it gives nothing and small when the harvest promises. This year, it chose to be infinite with an empty belly. You pass the mill. The sound of turning wood gives an idea of time, as if someone were grinding hours to see if they yield more. They don't. The miller gives a nod that counts as conversation. Conversation spends heat. Better to save it for when the afternoon arrives. At the bend of the creek, you have your usual meeting with the universal reality of water. It is cold. You dip your hand with the caution of someone who has already had purple swelling and knows bravery doesn't pay. You drink 2 sips, give thanks that it isn't brown today, and carry on. Your boot sinks in a place you swore was dry. Nature doesn't like oaths. Your head does the accounting of what won't be paid. The Lord's tax, the church tithe, the road toll, maintenance, they say, while holes swallow you up to the ankle, the favor that turned into debt. You sum it all up and realize the only things that multiply around here are worry and fleas. Fleas multiply well. On the ascent, the wind opens space inside your coat and invades as if it were the owner. You clutch the fabric to your chest and think that if someone invented a cloth that blocks wind, they would become a saint. But saints don't happen for peasants. Saints happen for those who write the lives of others. The village announces itself first by smell. Smoke, grease, and a light touch of fish that hung around longer than it should have. Then, by the noise of voices, people discussing prices with the conviction of those who will lose, but want to lose beautifully. The stalls appear like a protocol repetition. Wood, cloth, little piles of anything. You enter the flow like someone surrendering. The market is not a place, it is a habit. The merchant is already at his post. The cloth of the stall covers the sun that never came. In the corner, weights that always weigh in his favor. Interesting destiny, and a scale that smiles with a crooked wire. You lean the basket on the countertop, remove your hands slowly, as if releasing a wild animal. The merchant doesn't look at you. He looks at the eggs. He counts with the gaze of someone in a hurry to find a defect. 3 broken, he says without touching. 2 cracked, you correct, touching, and 1 with a face that doesn't please. He laughs at his own humorless pun. You breathe deep and remember your wife's advice. Don't come back with a fool's price. Easy to say when you aren't the one needing salt. While he decides how much your entire morning is worth, you observe the surroundings. The priest passes slowly, dark cloak, hand hidden in his sleeve. The usual greetings with that short nod that serves as both a blessing and a collection notice. A donkey pulls a cart with cabbages worse than yours and yet more expensive because the man with the cart knows how to speak loud. Selling here is a form of screaming. You think about offering the onions first. Onions are worth conversation, and conversation sometimes turns into mercy. You try. He picks one up, smells it like someone giving the final verdict of an opera, and hands it back. Too wet. It will rot. You think about replying that everything here is too wet, including life, but you swallow it. A misplaced answer costs more than a handful of salt. The merchant performs the little theater of mathematics, picks up the eggs with the delicacy of a thief, shakes his head like someone lamenting for you, sums up in a low voice, and announces a value that could offend if you had the energy to be offended. You look at the scale, at his face, at the sky, and back to the scale. In the end, arguing costs more than losing. You try a counter-offer with the elegance of someone who never had a math lesson. He smiles at the corner of his mouth, that smile of someone who already sold the price before the conversation started. The countercloth is damp. Your patience too. Close on this. It's what's possible for today, he says, with the generosity of someone who just saved you from something. You close. Not because you agree, but because you need to leave while there is still daylight. While he wraps your things, which are now his, you take 2 steps to the side and see the baker's boy running between the stalls with a piece of bread the family won't charge for, because the boy works double. Childhood around here has fast legs and slow guilt. A woman beside you, the kind the whole village knows by her first name and her persistence, comments on the harvest. Rain is coming, she says, pointing to a sky that hasn't resolved anything yet. You reply with a hopefully, which means the opposite. Too much rain is mud, too little is famine. The Middle Ages loves offering you false choices. The merchant returns your now empty hands and keeps his gaze firm on what remained on the table. Your money. It isn't money that fills the eye, it is little, but you have the salt and 3 nails. You close the pouch, hear the sound of metal, like listening to good and bad news at the same time, and think of the road back. Your body already starts planning where it will hurt. You lean against the stall post for just a second to check if your legs remember the way back. The merchant calls another, and you cease to exist for 3 phrases. That is how it works. The world spins, the conversation changes owners, and your morning becomes part of someone else's morning without asking permission. You adjust the empty basket, which now weighs heavily by mistake. Pull your coat tight, take 2 steps, and feel someone's hand touch your shoulder without asking. The merchant calls you again, the same tone of someone who already knows the result. Missed an egg on the paper, he says, and hands you a coin that wasn't scheduled to exist. It is small, but miracle enough for today. You nod your thanks for the economy of words and dignity. The market air seems less hostile for a second. The wind's blade cuts less, or you decided not to feel it. It doesn't matter. You turn your body toward the central aisle of the fair and restart the walk when the merchant directs his gaze over your shoulder, already calling someone arriving in a hurry. His shadow elongates on the ground and crosses yours. You don't notice at the time, but it is the kind of intersection that changes the course of the day. The next step is still yours. The thought is still yours. The exhaustion is definitely yours. Until the silence on the other side of the stall starts to weigh, and suddenly the day has another owner. For now, you breathe deep and think of the road, the salt, the nails, the soup that will taste better tonight. It is the possible victory. And honestly, a possible victory is already a luxury around here. You lift the basket, adjust the weight on your left arm, and walk. The fair continues talking loud, life too. And amidst that noise of voices and coins, your path crosses the same counter again. Only for the first time today, it isn't your head narrating the price. The peasant walks away with the empty basket and the care of someone carrying wind. You follow the movement with the trained eye of someone checking the direction of the day. Shoulders down, short step, the face of it was what it was. The stall pulls you back like a magnet. Damp wood, worn cloth, crooked scale. Crooked just the right amount, because let's face it, the world was never perfectly level, and nobody here has time to invent justice. You check the newly arrived eggs, 2 with fine scars, 1 condemned inside, the others acceptable. Nothing that arranged straw, a clean cloth, and a good phrase can't save. Fresh? Yes, provided that fresh means less old than the rest. The peasant's coins are still cold in your palm. They clink softly like lazy rain. They fit in the pocket and at the same time don't fit in the week. Welcome to the arithmetic of effort. The awning drips minute by minute, a fabric metronome. The fair exhales delayed fish, opinionated cheese, and sincere onion. Dust dances in the beam of sunlight that dares to pass through. For half a second, the village looks almost pretty, then returns to normal. Organization is the makeup of poverty. You redistribute apples on top, the less photogenic ones below, spices in the corner implying abundance, onions in an unstable pyramid, architecture of survival. Selling isn't screaming. Screaming is just the soundtrack. Selling is measuring people without a scale, choosing the right silence, placing the word last in the right sentence. The ritual comes ready-made. The customer arrives with, "I need," you respond with, "I can." And both pretend for 3 minutes that life is negotiable. It is honest theatre. Nobody believes in miracles, only in rounding up. A group of chickens crosses your front with the solemnity of a procession. Everyone swerves without thinking. Nobody respects them. In the background, the miller laughs louder than the joke deserves. His laugh always sounds like it ate better. 2 of the feudal lord's guards descend to the street. One looks like he's choosing a problem. The other spits civic duty into the mud. Spit around here is an official stamp. No ink needed, just attitude. You adjust the weights with the affection of someone who knows metal has humor. Sometimes it hangs a sliver in the right direction. Technical defect, if anyone asks. Nobody asks. Whoever buys is in a hurry to believe they won. You offer the apple from the good batch with the tone of a secret between friends and add, "It is the penultimate one." The penultimate sells better than the last. The last smells of closure, and closure reminds one of the end of the month. A different smell interrupts the general mixture. Wine. The barrel leaning in the back breathes slowly, remembering the long road it took to get here. Road, distracted guard, misplaced rain. A blessing from above, they said at the monastery. A holy way of saying, less water, more value, faith and fermentation, the duo that keeps this market talking without fighting. A boy sprouts under the edge of the counter, quick hand, shy eyes, rips a piece of bread from the stall next door and vanishes amidst the skirts. You don't become a judge. Bread has a natural vocation for changing owners. The neighbor realizes too late, wastes his throat in vain. The world continues. At least here, nobody complains about inflation, only plague. It is the kind of competitive advantage nobody wants. The priest's dark cloak appears in the corner of your field of vision. He walks straight, without hatred for the mud, like someone who has already made friends with gravity. Faces open out of habit. His good morning comes short, carved like a comma. You return it in the same size. Economy of words is an investment in patience. The first conversation isn't a purchase, it's a reminder of tax. The tithe has been collected since the harvest went right, and nobody argues. It is ancient law with the name of faith. You nod like someone who understands, even without agreeing. Noted, you say, a word that promises nothing and calms everyone. Here, feigning obedience is cheaper than discussing justice. The priest's gaze returns to the barrel. Good hesitation. There is no party in that decision, only logistics. Wine holds together untuned leather and the short patience of faithful starvelings. It is good. The question comes low. You pull the cork from the cask, wet the cup, and close it again. The liquid falls thick, ruby, smelling of grapes and road. For a second, even the fishmonger pays respect. A ritual is a ritual, even when the altar is a counter. For the mass, you offer with professional neutrality. If he buys, it becomes a service. If not, it becomes a compliment. The priest brings the cup to his nose, not his mouth, closes his eyes like someone experimenting without sinning. I have what I need. He puts down the chalice and repeats the reminder of the tithe. Messages like echoes. You give the price slowly, factoring in the road margin and the limit of faith. He nods, keeps the number, and walks away. The cloak sweeps the ground. The fare returns to normal programming. You resume the gesture of cleaning the counter. A customer with a fur hat asks for onions. How much? You answer with weight, sustain the gaze, offer an extra one as a courtesy of the batch. Controlled courtesy is the grease of commerce. 3 women arrive to measure salt, as if they were paying off the future in installments. It went up, you admit. Rained less, harvested less, brought less. Everyone agrees with the logic of scarcity. Nothing sticks better than a bad, but coherent, explanation. In the background, the soldiers reappear. One almost invents a reason, gives up. It was learned quickly around here that provoking a stall with a barrel in the back is work. You pass invisible in front of those who like trouble. Invisibility is valuable merchandise. Pity you can't sell it in packages. The sun rises and does not warm. The cloth drips in a stubborn metronome. You check the stock again. More for comfort than doubt. The barrel breathes, and of course, here he comes again. The tithe walks more punctually than the sun. The priest returns with the dark cloak and the air of someone who transformed the message into a purchase. The day realigns its own spine. You straighten your posture, adjust the scale, get the speech ready. The next paragraph of the fare begins at the edge of your counter. The priest stops again, as if the stall were an improvised churchyard. The hem of his cloak is wet, a sign that the street worked. There is a discreet tiredness in his look, maybe too much confession, maybe too little soup. His greeting comes out halfway. Yours comes the same size. Between you, the smell of wine, onion, and conversation that promises work. They spoke of your barrel. Little village multiplies rumors like rabbits, fast, silent, and without warning. You touch the tap with 2 fingers and ask if he came for liquid faith. No scolding. Today, irony saves the explanation. He aims at the barrel like someone measuring the distance between the altar and the mouth of the jar. For Sunday Mass, a whole sentence with verb, date, and audience. The purchase has a destination, and destination improves the price. You open the barrel and serve the test jug. The wine goes down with the dignity of someone who traveled and didn't regret it. The ear creates a bubble of silence around the gesture. People notice without interrupting. There are businesses everyone respects. Wood in winter, medicine in fever, wine at Mass. Commerce with an aura works better. The priest weighs the little jug with his hand, brings it to his nose, breathes deep. Smell of grapes and road without posing. You confirm it came slowly. Price. You pray the value like a short psalm. Road guard who blinked, rain that missed the month, new rope, clean cloth, the margin that doesn't offend. He doesn't haggle like a peasant. It manages 1 coin per jar, and I'll take 3. You consult the cloud, calculate stock, sound of afternoon, and close on the yes, which still pays for bread and firewood. A good bargain is one where both pretend to have won. While you pour the wine into the amphorae, a soldier leans in, curious. The priest tilts only his face, a gesture that alphabetizes authority. The soldier collects his curiosity, rehearses buying an apple, remembers he has no change, evaporates. Retreat theatre has a captive place in the square. You tie the mouths of the amphorae with decent rope, clean the neck, wipe the cloth like someone sealing a document. For the altar, better without dust, he comments. For the pocket, better without losses. You think and smile with fiscal neutrality. The counting of coins falls on the cloth like short rain. 1, 2, 3, 4. Sound that moves the mood of the day, half a step up. You check without exaggeration. Whoever wears Latin gets a discount on suspicion. The new weight in the little bag changes the temperature of the afternoon. It doesn't turn into abundance. It turns into breathing room. In the time of moral and political plague, breathing room is almost luxury, loyalty program. Here it has always been about surviving until the next market. He doesn't leave yet, stays close, measuring people with a pastoral look. The peasant's family asks without invading, the tone of someone organizing soup and silence, resisting like everyone else. You answer in the standard that doesn't humiliate. If you hear of anyone in need, let me know. You nod. Letting him know is also selling in another way, for another currency. Not all profit is metallic. Some pay in future tranquility. Between one customer and another, the conversation floats. A woman wants salt that lasts, as if there were salt with a short life. Another, a thread that won't break with anger. A young man wants spice, the strong kind, as if nutmeg cured defeat. You deliver a dose of reality in small packages, clear price, steady hand, brief look. Selling without drama saves calories, and there are days when this decides who faints first. It's going to rain. The priest doesn't announce a forecast, he decrees a principle. You look at the awning dripping and agree out of survival. Next door, the fishmonger lifts a herring with the pride of a trophy. The smell protests in Latin. 2 stalls discuss a debt from yesterday. The debate is long. Hands stay in pockets. Violence consumes energy nobody has. A circle of children improvises a pot-lid race. Victory here is a light thing. You assemble a mound of apples in the shape of a promise. The priest adjusts the cruets, jars against his chest, divides the weight like someone sharing mass. Before leaving, he leaves a reminder with dry humor. Punctuality tomorrow. The tithe walks more punctually than the sun. You return, inside and out, only the scene. The cloak moves, the cloth drinks a bit of the street, the churchyard pulls the man back. At this hour, the stall shrinks a little. What grows is the path to the church. He walks away and the focus of the village slides with him without asking permission. The fair continues, of course. Cold coin bumping into cold coin, barrel breathing, customer complaining that things were better in the old days. The old days were always better for those who remember little. A boy reappears with crumbs in the corner of his mouth. You pretend you didn't see. Adult life is this, selecting crimes out of exhaustion. The bell tolls in the background, doesn't converse, doesn't give an opinion. It only marks the part of the day where everyone pretends time is order and not accident. You make change, push a bag of salt, receive 2 coins, return 1 by mistake, correct without scandal. The counter returns to breathing in the old rhythm, as if nothing had happened beyond 1 more purchase that will become a short story on the park bench. The dark cloak turns the corner and disappears toward the churchyard. The air near you loses a bit of shadow and gains the smell of cut apple. The next customer approaches, steps of someone wanting a discount and argument of someone who has already lost. You adjust the cloth, level the pile, prepare your voice. The story, however, has already walked a few steps ahead of you. The fair remains tired and noisy, same as always, because in this place, even boredom was collective. The gaze leaves the stall, crosses the street, and follows the priest. The camera doesn't cut, it only changes owners. You move away from the merchant's stall with the weight of the amphorae divided between your arms and the not at all novel sensation of having done what was possible. The cloth of the cloak drags a bit of the street. Street always sticks, especially when the street is clay and mud is routine. The market continues speaking behind you. Fish protesting, shy coins, people organizing their own survival like someone organizing a drawer that never closes. It is the fixed music of the village. It has no chorus, but everyone knows how to sing it. The cold wind finds the space between your collar and nape, enters without asking permission, like any bad news. You pull the cloak higher and feel the humidity shiver along with your body. The amphorae press your ribs with limited politeness. The altar likes dignity, jars like firmness. The difference is that dignity weighs less. The step goes slow, calculating where the ground accepts the foot. The village awards those who know where they step and condemns those who believe in luck. The houses repeat themselves in wood, smoke and wall dust. Doors ajar exhibit the common theatre. A pot trying to boil with fire that only tries, a barefoot child measuring the street with his eyes, an old woman beating a cloth that was a cloth and is now useful memory. You know almost everyone by name and by silence. The job teaches you to read both. More than that, it teaches reading the intervals, the moment the gaze drops, the way the hand searches the empty pocket, the haste to change the subject when the question is, "Are you eating?" You cross the miller who nods with head and pride. The mill turns in the background in a noise of wood-chewing wind. Each turn counts as work done, better than many a homily. At least the mill doesn't argue. It just turns, grinds, and tires. Faith sometimes still asks for explanation. On the eaves of a house, a hanging piece of meat discusses its own destiny with the air. You recognize the smell of salt and necessity. The fireplace smoke repeats the same creed. Living requires patience and firewood and useful lies. Useful lies are one of the unwritten pillars of the village. It will get better. It passes quickly. Winter ends. Works better than discussing theology with the hungry. The main road pushes you toward the churchyard. A group of men pushes a stubborn cart, wheels sunk in a stony mood. Pushing is the favorite verb around here. One pushes cart, debt, disease, marriage, miracle. It isn't pretty, but it moves. Beside them, two women debate the price of salt with the intensity of someone discussing inheritance. Salt accepts no argument. It accepts coin. You follow because the village agenda rarely moves without you in the middle, or at least watching. Halfway there, a boy passes at full speed with stolen bread tucked under his shirt. From afar, the baker shouts more out of habit than hope. You think about calling out, think about pretending you didn't see. Decide to educate on the right day. Not today. There are days when morality naps, and that's fine. The world doesn't fall because of a nap, it falls from exhaustion. You adjust the amphorae and feel the cold clay touch your cassock. The weight helps organize your head. Parish accounts. The roof leaking on the front pew. The community soup needing vegetables. Tomorrow's tithe. The old woman who coughed blood yesterday and denied it was blood. The merchant who negotiates with the skill of a confectioner. Few words, many signs. The work is a mosaic, and you are the glue. It makes no noise, but holds everything. At the corner of the smithy, the blacksmith hammers iron with a conviction that would be useful in sermons. The shine of newly lit metal gives you the vision of a summer that doesn't exist. Hammer, anvil, spark that dies before making sense. It is like that with almost everything around here. You go up to the well street. The rope creaks with the usual effort, as if washing the conscience of the one pulling. The water arrives in a bucket and returns to having a destiny. Pot, child, wound, plant. You think without saying aloud that water is also an informal sacrament. It has no Latin, but it cleans, and sometimes it is the maximum miracle a house receives in a day. Two boys throw stones in opposite directions and call it a game. One hits his foot, cries without drama, and returns for the next attempt. Pain around here doesn't become a spectacle, it becomes a step. Better than many adults, you lean the amphorae in a shadow, breathe twice, and listen to your body remember it exists. The shoe leather squeezes your heel like a poorly chosen penance. Faith, at least, you choose. The shoe, no. A familiar figure approaches through the narrow street that opens in front of the church. It is the peasant woman, the wife of the man who sold eggs too early, with a kerchief tying her head, haste tying the rest. Walking with worry gives more speed than hot soup. She adjusts her dress, looks at the ground, looks at you, back to the ground. Her body is a discourse more honest than many letters. "Father," she says with the voice of someone asking permission in a place that should be home. "Can I speak for a moment?" You open your hand, open your face, open the door. The gesture has practice, the request has direction. Blessing fits in any schedule. You know you are about to hear a text you already know. "Look at my husband. He comes back with little. The merchant earns more than us. The boy eats with gusto and grows in a hurry. No news, but news is not a requirement for care. You enter. The church air swallows part of the street noise. The light is shy, strained through narrow windows, but behaves as if it were sufficient. You lean one of the amphorae near the altar and feel that the day has already begun to repeat itself with a bit of dignity. Repetition isn't always bad. Sometimes it is a hug. She begins with, "Father, sorry to bother," as if she were capable of bothering someone who lives to be bothered with just causes. You nod for her to continue. "I wanted a blessing for my husband, just for him to return whole and with sense. Today he sold well. But the fare, the Lord knows, money drains away, temptation grows, and before you know it, it's gone." She doesn't accuse, she describes. It is the difference of those living on the limit. Precise language. No decoration, no table theology. You listen without haste. Words of urgency deserve a dignified step to descend. While she speaks, you observe her cracked hands, clean as far as water allowed, nervous without meaning to be. Hands that cook, sew, shoe the chicken. Smooth a child's hair to see if the fever went down. Hands that carry the house like someone carrying fire without a burner. Nobody sings about this. They should. You offer what you can. Prayer, practical advice, a reminder that tomorrow there is soup and you can send an extra ladle if the boy needs it. She shakes her head, thanks you with her eyes, and hesitates on the next gesture. That movement of someone who wants to ask for more and doesn't know the name of more. You help. Speak. She releases her breath. If one day it's possible, pass by there, just to look. You had already decided this the moment she opened her mouth. The pastoral visit has the secret function of being a human visit. Sometimes that is the only difference. You raise your hand, bless calmly, make no speech. Let the silence work. Blessing without spectacle has more precision. She breathes with relief, like someone loosening clothes on a tired, hot day. Her face rests 1 millimeter. It is the maximum for now. It counts. In the end, she changes the subject the way the village likes, without abrupt transition, just turning her face to another problem. The roof here keeps leaking. You smile sideways. It keeps on, but chooses different pews. Keep the novelty. Small humor, almost zero cost, immediate effect. She laughs with shame for laughing inside the church. Permitted laughter. Laughter is the brother of forgiveness on good days. Outside, the fare doesn't shut up, just gets farther away. Inside here, the day resolves to balance itself for 3 breaths. Life in the village is this, a sequence of light crises, with interruptions of some grace. You learn to be a technician of this grace. Repair the soul where possible. Patch the roof when possible. Pull prayer when nails are missing. At least here, nobody asks you for a miracle with a receipt. You accompany her to the door. The world comes back in the form of smoke smell and conversation. She thanks you again, takes 3 steps toward the square, and the kerchief on her head almost unties with the wind. Her hand holds it, the problem postponed for seconds. That is how one lives, postponing the problem with enough efficiency to have strength to postpone the next one. You pull the door, breathe the church again, adjust the amphora next to the altar, and feel that the day for now is on the possible track. It isn't little. In a year of lean earth, a possible track is a harvest. And here comes another request at the entrance. Someone coughing, someone needing cloth, someone without a candle to bury the sick old man. Do you understand? The line of faith does not vary. It is the only line that wants no applause. At least nobody here charges you a monthly report. Only life, which is worse, but screams less. You refocus attention on the altar. The peasant woman's kerchief has already become a distant movement in the street, and the nave fits in the chest again. The smell of ancient incense inhabits the woods, mixed with candle wax that was once a promise and became a stain. The light from sliced windows enters and organizes the dust in a slow procession, beautiful in a minimal way. Here, the minimum is worth the maximum in places that don't feel cold. You rest your hands on the smooth wood of the kneeler. The knee protests with the usual repertoire. The body remembers that the sacred is also weight. You breathe 3 times, don't look for big phrases. Big phrases distract. You ask for strength of the useful kind to endure those who don't sleep, not to turn tiredness into rudeness, to remember names at the right time. That and a little sun before the harvest. The order of requests varies, the need does not. In the middle of the second prayer, the door scratches against the stone. You don't curse chance. A church door is the sister of urgency. The peasant woman enters again, not out of regret for the request, but because the thread of worry is long. The boy, the husband, the fare, the merchant. It is always the same list in random order. Father, she hesitates in the nave without courage to touch the pew, as if pews were reserved for those who believe better. You call with your hand, invite with your face. The church is wider than guilt. I wanted, if you could, a blessing for my boy. The rest of the sentence is biography. Runs too much, eats what he can, invents courage where shoes are missing, puts his hand where vigilance is lacking. You listen to the scene, repeat the gesture. Blessing here works almost like a glove. It doesn't prevent a wound, but changes the way of holding it. Bring him when you can, you say, or I'll send soup for both. She holds back laughter, holds back tears, holds back the kerchief. Thank you. Leaves fast, like someone fearing the request will grow if she lingers. Sometimes it grows. You return to the altar, noting that silence is the most expensive piece in the church, and by rare luck, today it is paid for. You reopen the prayer exactly at the point where thought had parked. Simple request, cheap strength, living memory. Add some names. The old man who breathes wheezing, the blacksmith with pain in his fingers, the woman from the eaves who lost appetite and humor, the merchant with the face of tired lucidity. Yes, you pray for those who win at the tip of the pen. In a small village, everyone is necessary, even those who seem to take more than they give, especially those. When they fall, the whole web gives way. You adjust the altar cloth, fold the cloth with wax spots into rectangles that feign order. Feigning order is a domestic habit of the parish. Fold cloth, align crooked candle, plaster crack with lime, improvise dignity with a sink brush. The sacred appreciates the effort, even when aesthetics gives up. You pass your hand over the wood and remember the roof leaking on alternating benches, as if the leak were democratic, isn't it? The water picks heads with aim. You promise again to go up when the sun happens to help. The sun is busy. Voices at the door, a hesitant shadow, another decided. Two women enter with firm kerchiefs, the kind who hold half the village with the left hand while the right cooks and the head calculates. They ask about Saturday's soup, write down the ingredient. Ask about the old woman who coughed blood and swore it was wine. It wasn't, you confirm without theatre. They nod with the gentle ferocity of someone who will bring cloth and word. It is the good militia of the village. Organized women, pot on the fire, eye on others. You bless this invisible union every day. After they leave, the church falls into what it knows best how to do: delay. Time here has another mode. It walks with smaller steps, looks at the floor, doesn't knock over the glass. Instead of running, it repeats. Repeating is the most polite way to teach a tired mind. You take the opportunity and check the tabernacle, like someone checking the door lock before sleeping. Doing simple things is the only proven method not to go crazy with complex ones. The door creaks again. Now only the wind enters, bringing the smell of the market and a conversation that doesn't arrive whole. You understand loose words, price, not today, tomorrow, who knows, the basic script of survival. Could you preach on this? The parable of short change doesn't preach. The people have already heard it. The people live it. A man appears at the threshold and decides not to enter. Taps 2 fingers on his chest, tilts his face, apologizes to the air, and returns to the street. Simple gesture, but notable. Shame in good condition still circulates. You give thanks inside. It is a rare coin, without alloy, and the parish issues no more. You light 2 candles for a request that arrived nameless, those folded notes that speak with cramped handwriting for rain that works. That works is the local unit, neither too much nor too little, nor on Thursday when the hay is on the ground. Rain that works is all the village desires. In the sacristy, you check the host case. Notice the chalk boxes at the end. Remember that the afternoon catechism will require drawing on the board, and there is no board. There will be a wall. A bird tried to enter through the stained glass and gave up at the last instant. Scratches on the bar denounce the haste. You catch yourself thinking about the distant luxury of having time to think. Laughing at this is automatic. The most expensive luxury in the parish is half an hour of silence that nobody asks for. Small steps in the nave. The peasant woman returned. Third time is a record, but justifiable. The kerchief lost the war against the wind. She holds the edge with her hand, and with the other holds tiredness at her waist. Father. Sorry. He went to the tavern. I just wanted him to come back with the salt. There is no accusation, only geography. Between him and the house exists a tavern. Between her and Patience exists a child. You measure the sentence and offer something of the right size. I'll pass by there on the way back. I'll say salt is heaven's business. Minimum humor, maximum service. Her face relaxes 1 centimeter. Centimeters save days. You guide her. Wait at home. If it rains, pull the thicker cloth to the corner of the crooked tiles and eat before it gets late. Teaching to eat before hunger turns to anger is the kind of advice that doesn't go into catechism but saves marriage. She agrees, thanks, leaves. The echo of her sandal crosses the nave, and for a moment it seems the church clapped lightly. Could have been imagination. Imaginations are permitted, the rest is what complicates. You breathe deep and return to prayer, not for the drama, but for the habit. Habit is the natural science of the parish. Who has no habit catches head sickness. Who has suffers with method, and that improves sleep. When sleep decides to pass, you thank the wine that arrived. It will yield tuned singing, foot of rain that works. Remember Saturday's soup, the kerchiefed women commanding half the miracles, the miller laughing loud, the merchant giving correct change, the boy running, the old man creaking, the stone jamming the cart every day. Ask that the stone remains stone. The world is already tumbling too fast. Outside, a noise of dispute rises and falls. Discussion about debt without violence, energy economy. You smile inside. The village learns fast when beaten by winter. Fighting tires, negotiating tires. The body remembers coffee that doesn't exist. You decide to fool the body with water and a piece of bread saved for emergency. Emergency has become a synonym for noon. You like cheap solutions. The bread is hard, honors the village fame. You wet it with water, honor your stomach's fame. Works like everything here, leaves something to be desired but delivers the minimum. A crack in the roof. You raise your head by immediate reflex. No, not raining yet. It is just the wood adjusting longing for summer. Summer, when it comes, doesn't apologize for being late. At least it isn't like the harvest. You take the small jar and fill a chalice for the test. Tomorrow's mass deserves confirming the batch. The smell fills the inside air with something that almost resembles a party without abandoning the place's honest poverty. Wine is one of the few things that when it arrives makes people speak lower. One gives thanks more quietly for what is missing the rest of the year. Steps at the door, this time firm. The same peasant woman. No, another woman. Equal kerchief, similar urgency. Father, it's quick. Mine, if the Lord sees, send him home, say the beans are boiling. You promise with the same tone used 3 minutes ago. The repetition technique has this advantage. You know exactly how many muscles are needed to appear secure. You use them all. You think of the tavern as a second sacristy in reverse, that one confesses without intention of repentance and communicates bread with thick broth and noise. You don't bless the tavern, nor do you curse it. Place of risk isn't offended, it's administered. If everything goes right, you pass there, use half a dozen words the owner respects, because he respects the cloak and the idea of order, and forward 2 fathers back with salt, bread, and manageable shame. The afternoon pulls the light down, like someone slowly closing the curtain. The church accepts the change with the patience of stones. You coordinate 2 more quick visits. A candle for the old woman confused between night and day. A note to the carpenter to repair the crooked bench, and you forgot for 3 weeks. A note to the blacksmith. Bring the long nail, the short one escapes. Small things, all relevant. The miracle, when it comes, arrives by order of small item. At the door, you take 3 steps out, and the village swallows you again. The fair continues without the noisiest part. The merchant is still there, reduced to distance and function. The cruets by the altar will play their role. Tomorrow's tithe will play yours. You go down the street a bit and see without calling the figure that really matters now. The peasant woman with the kerchief in the position of someone already going, but waiting for a sign. You give it with your head. Half blessing, half it will work. The focus follows her step for a second. The kerchief holds the hair, the hand holds the kerchief, the heart holds the house. Short traveling shot, sufficient. The story changes from cassock to apron without asking permission. That is how the village walks. A gaze swaps owners. The day remains whole, because in this place nobody is protagonist for long. And the grace is that even so, the day always ends the same. Dust, fatigue, and people pretending tomorrow will be different. The street collects the church sound and returns it in a murmur. The focus descends to where faith ends and noise restarts. You push the church door with your fingertips. The street enters. Smoke, tired fish, shouted price, wet wool wind. The kerchief tries to flee. You hold it. In the other seconds you lose. It is always like this. The kerchief, the day, you. You adjust the hem of the dress, check with your eye if the apron string held, and breathe like someone lifting a heavy pot. Slowly, or it spills. The priest stays inside, Amphorae on the altar, low voice. He holds the roof with prayer. You hold the house with an apron knot. Good for him. It amounts to the same with less Latin. Your request stayed in the air, simple as bread. Blessing for the husband to return whole and with salt. Salt is not a miracle. Miracle is expensive and charges interest. Salt is maintenance. The square appears in parts. The fishmonger's voice too loud. The miller's laugh with flour dust. Finally, the merchant's stall arranged as if it were a poor man's party. Piles aligned to trick the eye and calm the conscience. You follow the side because whoever walks through the middle of the square needs money or courage. Today you have the first one in short supply and the second at the limit. The village covers everything with the same dust. Goats deciding the path, children deciding hunger, women deciding the future as far as the pot allows. You see yourself from outside, stubborn kerchief, fast step, eye measuring the hour. Walking like someone carrying water without a lid. Every corner is a risk of spilling what remains of patience. You take the path of someone who doesn't want to wear out shoes. Edge of shadow, firm stone, puddle that tricks the distracted. The dress catches a wisp of mud. You pull, it widens. Clothing is like problems. If you poke it wrong, it becomes a topic. And yes, there is an eternal risk of missing cloth where it is most needed. You mentally promise to patch it at night. Domestic promises are the only ones you usually keep. At the salt counter, 3 women discuss measures. Looks like a peace treaty, but it is lunch. A handful and a half. Whose handful? Mine, which is honest. You listen, don't enter. Discussion of handfuls ends in effective mathematics. Every hand has its liturgy. You prefer the accounts of silence. A handful today, a handful tomorrow, and pray for the rain to come in a way that works. Between praying and patching tiles, you chose your religion a long time ago. The wind decides to remind you it exists. You hold the kerchief with one hand, with the other trap tiredness at the waist, and with your head try to hold the whole house, multitasking without a course. If someone asked you what is the difference between love and force, you would point to the apron knot. Tie it and hold. Practical, you would say. Cheap philosophy, yet efficient. You cross with the soldiers. They pass with the haste of those late to impose respect. They don't look, don't see. Better that way. Imposed respect is a thing invented by those who have no dishes to wash. You return to counting what you need. Light the fire, blow the fire, pray to the fire, cook the broth, pretend the broth is soup, hide the last onion from the boy who eats like a sore, remember the husband about the salt. The world fits in 3 repeated tasks. At the merchant's stall, the cloth cleans the counter for the 10th time in half an hour, a sign that profit hasn't arrived the way the owner wanted. He has that beautiful technique of arranging ugly fruit with the attitude of a groom. Whoever sees from afar swears the orchard came along. You see from close up and know that part is talk, part is talent. Deep down, everyone here works with the same raw materials: effort, trickery and resignation. Your sight wanders over the counter by pure reflex and finds exactly what it didn't want to find. A boy with a face too familiar, pocket more stuffed than it should be, laughing with his eyes at someone invisible. He has your husband's gesture, that way of resting his cheek on his sleeve when he is plotting something. A mother's heart dispenses with confirmation, recognizes guilt by the perfume. You hold your breath just until you understand if it is really him. It is. It is him, left foot more out, right ready to run, the poorly hidden joy of someone who discovered the world, doesn't watch all the time. He has breadcrumbs on his mouth and courage crumbs in his pocket. You feel 2 desires, to hug and to pull an ear. You choose the third option, walk fast and regret slowly. A short thought, at least he runs. Here running is already a luxury. Whoever runs lives one more afternoon. Tired angels would accept this prayer without argument. You cut the path behind the fish cart. Hold his full name between your fingers. Full name only leaves the mouth when things are serious and rehearses the tone that doesn't humiliate. Good scolding, you learned, is the one that fixes the mistake without breaking the child. Now is time to test theory with wind in the face and stubborn kerchief. Beside you, the fishmonger lifts a herring. The smell decides for you. Not today. Not today. You think about saying this to destiny, not the fish. It would be great to have a simple button for not today. No, there isn't one. Even boredom around here is on duty. You breathe. The scolding comes rising ready from the stomach. You turn your face and see the merchant on the other side, doing that invisible accounting of survival. The stall resonates shy coin. The priest back there turns into a cloak shadow going to the churchyard. The village makes noise. You stir the day with the wooden spoon. The boy notices you a second before your hand touches his shoulder. Innate instinct. He plugs in the look that makes an angel face, but leaves the heel ready for plan B. It isn't the first time. Won't be the last. You inhale and decide. Today, short speech, domestic economy also applies to breath. The full name gets saved for when he turns 15 and keeps acting up. Where is the salt? The question comes dry, bigger than the salt itself. He searches for words in his pocket, finds crumbs, opens his mouth, closes, opens again, and runs. You don't run after him, not now. You know where he usually hides when the scolding is not negotiable. Near the well, behind the blacksmith's cart, or on ambitious days on the cemetery wall, talking to the silence. Child tests limits, mother repairs crumpled limit. For now, you keep the phrase that comes after the run. Come back, we'll talk. A metal comment climbs to your head. At least in the Middle Ages, nobody needs to pretend to understand children with a self-help book. You understand a child with broth, open window, and a no said 3 times calmly. Works 70% of the time. It is a better rate than the harvest. You collect the kerchief again, pull the thread threatening to leak, organize breathing. The market continues. The cart jams always on the same stone. And yet everyone feigns surprise. Life here has this kindness, repeating the problem to see if someone finds a solution in the leftovers. Almost never finds, but repeating helps the body memorize. You still see the boy turning at the well. The rest is cooking and waiting. Cooking is the weight that heats up. You take the direction of the well with the step of someone who knows they are on the right trail. The ground teaches the map. The small footprint on the edge of the mud, the pebble kicked to the corner, the pot lid that becomes a play coin. Childhood leaves crumbs better than bread. You go collecting without haste. Haste only serves to miss the tone when arriving. Along the way, the smell of the tavern arrives before the door. Smoke, thick broth, laughter attempting to disguise debt. It is early for him to be there, too early. You store this worry in a drawer that is already full. When a drawer fills, you push with your hip, ancient method, and curiously, the most modern one you have. The well appears, worn rope, dripping bucket. 2 girls swear that today the water is lighter. You don't argue with water, you greet with what remains of civility. Civility is the salt of failed relationships, but preserves. You look at the corners and find a shirt thread of your boy caught on the low branch. Apron detective. You find the shirt thread and follow. Behind the blacksmith's cart. Silence of people breathing. You go around slowly. The boy is there, shrunk in the customary talent of sympathetic culprits. He has crumbs on his mouth, on his chest, in his soul. His eye is an insulting mix of fear and laughter. You know that mix is the raw material of childhood and also the main ingredient of your headache. No need to run from me. You start with what you always wanted to hear when you were his age and nobody said. The phrase flows slowly, finds the exact ear, lives there a second. He doesn't answer, adjusts the heel, ready for plan B. You point to the pocket. He understands, takes out 2 breadcrumbs, a little piece of apple peel, and courage folded in 4. You breathe, count 5 in your head, and choose the conversation field. Hunger is a beast, I know. But a pocket full of temptation grows along with it. It doesn't grow, no. He pretends he understood everything. Because children pretend out of courtesy and to shorten the sermon. You shorten for your own health. The good scolding can't be long. It is a law of domestic physics. He takes from the other pocket a handful of nothing, and from nothing appears a small coin, rusty, coming from where? Mystery that childhood doesn't reveal to the Department of Mothers. Your heart gives a shortened leap. Who knows what that coin intends to buy when it grows up? Whose is this? He has no answer, has a line of sweat. You don't complicate. Take the coin for yourself. Mother is the house central bank. Moral confiscation is part of the job. You bend down, pick up the coin. It is still warm. Nobody nearby, only the wind and the merchant's body. You guard it not out of greed, out of reflex. Deep down it is just round iron trying to seem like destiny. Let's go. You point the direction. The broth doesn't stir itself, and your father needs the salt. He shrinks resistance until it becomes a short shadow. Gets up, you adjust his kerchief. His because yes, sons also use cloth on their heads when the wind decides to play rough. He tolerates the arrangement out of affection, only for that. Affection passes without a fine. It is the only law that sticks on the way. You trace the containment plan. Salt stall. No tavern, no game, no side conversation. Buy, keep and leave. Adults forget their own childhood. You also already forgot. Old fine paid. You arrive at the salt stall. The discussion of handfuls continues as if it never stopped. You wait for a space in someone's sentence and fit in with half a word. Whoever dominates the middle of the sentence dominates the purchase. A handful of mine. The seller looks at your hand, measures with her eye, delivers half of what fits and a discount of dignity because she knows your name and knows the name of your boy. Neighborhood is this silent accounting of favors nobody writes down. You keep the salt like someone keeping the rare word and decide by strategy and fear of yourself not to pass in front of the tavern. The boy notices the detour and deduces the reason. Dad? 1 syllable alone. Narrow bridge over wide river. You breathe after and later. Here is the best medicine you invented without a leaflet. The world speaks too loud. To lower the noise you use, it will work. Short prayer works enough. A will work, short and ready. Today it helps. The boy tries the subject that interests boys. Can I run? You intend to say no because no saves lives. But the question came with a piece of sky in his eye. You adapt. Run, but come back and no tavern. He agrees with his whole body. Children's bodies answer before thinking and shoot off. Dust rises, wind whistles, the village gains a soundtrack of kicked lids. In 3 seconds, he becomes the protagonist of another story, his own. You become an extra, a position that yields peace when the extra knows the time to say, I arrived. You return home because the broth doesn't accept a scene. The fire doesn't forgive distraction. Better to watch. Sky closing, stubborn clothesline. Collect cloth, store salt, touch routine. Normalcy wears any mood inside the house. The smell of leftover soup mixes with the smell of tired wood. You relight the ember with the measured breath of someone who negotiated with winter for years. Fire accepts negotiation better than people. Later I'll pass there. You promise to the air. There is the tavern. The phrase has a hidden owner, your husband, and a declared target, yourself, who needs courage with an appointment time. The spoon scrapes the bottom of the pot and brings back what seemed lost. Cooking is this, rescuing in the last millimeters what the day wanted to waste. You taste the broth with the tip of your tongue and elect the word of the day. Doable. Doable to eat. Doable to live. Doable not to scream. Doable is a short prayer, efficient and without dogma. A knock on the door, light, shy, with the polite guilt of someone who knows it's the wrong time. You open, it is the neighbor. If you see mine, send him home. The message comes equal to the one you left at the church some paragraphs ago. The women of this village are the official mail of prudence. You agree. Exchange half an onion for half a piece of information and send one more "It will work" to the universe printed on the walls. The boy reappears without you understanding how children have this science. Sweaty, happy, and with a problem. Saw soldiers around here. Soldier comes to collect or search. Gives a headache. You measure the risk and put it away. Eat. You place the plate in his hand before the sentence ends. The pedagogy of soup defeats any speech. He eats in a hurry. The haste of someone who doesn't want to lose anything of the world because of a plate. You observe the face and calculate the fever. Today, normal. Tomorrow, we'll see. Motherhood is an invisible budget. Between spoonfuls, he drops another novelty. The merchant dropped a coin. Your heart misses a beat. 2 beats in one. How do you know? The boy freezes too fast. There are truths that require rust before being told. I heard. The word spins in the air, looking for a chair, doesn't find one. You cut the spin. Eat. Sometimes the knot unties itself when nobody pulls. You decide the tavern can't wait until very late. The sky settles blue in a tone of closing soon. You tie the kerchief. Keep the salt in a box that doesn't deserve the name box. Ask the boy to close the door when the ember asks for sleep and take the street again, which has already learned your step. The afternoon recognizes you. The mud, too. The tavern is where it always was, at the intersection between necessity and guilt. The owner sees you and regulates his expression to a civilized middle ground. Neither invitation nor expulsion. You enter up to the door, where the smell of heavy broth mixes with laughter that tries to be louder than conscience. Your husband isn't in sight. If he shows up, send the salt before the story. The innkeeper understands. You have this protocol. Few words, clear order, invisible urgency. Leave it to me. It made you want to laugh at yourself. You asking for salt in a tavern as if it were possible to buy morality in a glass. Irony is good for health, but you don't abuse it. Better to go back. The broth waits, and night always arrives before patience. The square now looks like laziness with legs. The merchant collects cloth. The fishmonger washes the protest of the herring. The miller calculates laughs for the following day. The priest organizes visits. The soldier chooses a place to loom later. You keep the whole scenario with the eye that goes, because tomorrow you will need to remember all this to reconstruct the same morning with small differences. That is how a day passes without passing over you. At the corner, the boy appears again, this time in comet mode. Comes coming, scratches the ground, makes noise, threatens to disobey physics, and vanishes. You vibrate with the speed and curse the courage in equal measures. Careful. Careful is the word you throw to the wind in the hope that he learns without you nearby. Almost a miracle. You touch your hand to your chest to check the pace of the normalized heart, at least for now. The body learns to calibrate its own despair. It is a skill the village teaches for free, like almost everything that matters. You arrive at the house door. Spoon, fire, soup. The sound of the spoon on the bottom of the pot becomes a clock. The boy with the ear that moistens the world returns sprouting from the back of time. He is full of new stories, which is a pretty way of saying half are problems, half are data. Mum, can I see the soldiers up close? No. Why? Because I said so. You swallow the smile. Swore not to use that phrase, break for safety, and safety here is honest. He went to the door. You hold his arm with exact softness, the one that prevents without breaking. Tomorrow. tomorrow is a community promise, serves to postpone danger and sustain sleep. He accepts, not out of agreement, but because the body tired of running and decided to obey the stomach. You take the bread from the cloth, share it with the unfair geometry mothers dominate. Bigger piece for the son, smaller for you. The injustice accepted on the plate reappears as justice on the pillow. He sleeps faster, you sleep more tired. Accounting that works, despite ethics, the light sinks a little. The sky resolves to practice the tone of soon. You light the second candle without announcing drama, just to better see the broth turn to soup and the soup turn to doable. The boy chews with eye half closed. Between one sigh and another he speaks. Light, Mum, tomorrow I run more. Run, no, run, yes. And you know tomorrow he runs more. It is what children do in the absence of alternative. You decide you will stay on the right corner of the village so the run has a possible end. In the carelessness of a second, the focus leaves your hand and enters the boy's eye. He pulls the afternoon to himself. The camera changes owners between the spoon and the no. The street pulls the thread of the story in the direction of the merchant. The boy assumes the afternoon in his own chest. You return to what you had. Breath, fire, broth. It is enough to keep the world cooperating, at least for now. You leave the house before the spoon finishes the turn in the pot, pass through the door, like someone who owns the street, even without paying tax. The wind tries to push you back, but you already learned to elbow the air. The kerchief your mother tied on your head got crooked on the second step. Perfect. Twisted runs faster. You step where you know the mud holds less, kick 2 pebbles on the path, give a name to one of them, and decide it won the race. Organization is this, choosing a winner even when nobody asked. The village is noise without toys. The noise of the fishmonger, the miller's laugh, the blacksmith's hammer, the merchant's voice saying penultimate, all at the same time. You like crossing the square as if you were invisible. Sometimes it works, sometimes a scolding comes. Scolding is rain. One day yes, the other too. You learn to run between the clouds. You pass the priest at the church door. He gives that nod that looks like a blessing, and you return with your head like someone saying, I'm going over there to live. His cloak cuts the wind. You cut with leg, but you fly in another way. Leg. The merchant's stall is tidier than his face. Aligned apples, onions in a tower that looks like a castle, spices that smell like a secret. You think spice is the smell of a distant kingdom? Maybe it is. The hand flies, not because you are bad, you don't even know how to be bad all the time, but because the apple shines exactly the size of your hunger. Child's hand doesn't like to shine for nothing. You approach from behind, rehearse a sigh of boredom, and the apple that was there to be seen turns to leave, fits in the palm. The fruit weighs little. Guilt weighs even less when the stomach makes noise. You approach from behind, bite on the way. Small sin, fast leg, no philosophy. On the other side of the square, the tavern trains laughter. It is early, and early is time for people trying to hide late. You don't enter. You already know that there the world walks slow and goes in circles. Childlike straight line that changes direction when it wants. You point to the well just for a test. Halfway, change to the blacksmith. Spark is the village fireworks. The blacksmith hits, the metal screams, spark cheers. Ready. Your mother appears in light storm cloud mode, the kerchief fighting with her. You realize before her hand touches your shoulder. Instinct is your best teacher. You switch on plan B. Smile that tries to look like regret. Doesn't work. So you switch on plan C, leg, run, but pay attention where you run. Running without a map is asking for a scheduled meeting with the ground. The ground of this village likes meetings. You cut behind the fish cart, almost knock over a herring, and mentally promise an apology that won't come out today. The fishmonger curses the wind. You pretend the wind answers by your name. Fast, you learn the geography of forgiveness. Swerving is the best request. In the churchyard, 2 old women talk about adult things. The price of salt, the tooth that decided to leave, the winter that pretends it stayed on the corner. You pass as if you heard nothing but keep everything. Child is a notebook without lines, notes what interests, scribbles the rest. You aim for the street leading to the road. Up there, a metal noise, a beat of people. Look, soldiers. 2, 3, 5. You count fast, err on purpose, recount. They walk with the haste of those wanting to be seen. Heavy boots, cloak that spins slowly, face that looks like it chews stone. One of them has a bag hanging on his belt. You decide it is treasure. Curiosity opens a path in your chest as if it had an owner. It has you. You decide to follow. On the path, you cross the merchant again. He cleans the counter like someone advancing the future. You remember the darkened coin you kept earlier and your mother's indirect advice. Don't become a big thief. You don't want to become any thief. You want to become fast. For now it works. The street inclines. You go up, the wind finds your face and explains what cold is without metaphor. Did you understand? Your hand holds the apple by half. It is the official portion of adventure. The trail leaving the village for the road smells of dignified bush and knee pain, of those who have traveled it 60 times. You travel like someone arriving for the first time. The body doesn't know how to repeat tiredness when the head invents novelty. From high up, you can see the whole village playing at existing, small, noisy, predictable, and yet yours. You don't think of this with big words. You think with the desire to roll down. Don't roll, soldier. Doesn't match with rolling. You stay at a distance where you can see without becoming a topic. Soldier likes a topic. Child with question face becomes easy topic. You hide behind a bush, which the village calls a bush. Because naming plants here is luxury. They stop at a stretch where the road is narrow. You children call it crow's throat, because people give names to things that want to bite. You hear laughter of man who thinks he commands and laughter of man who needs to obey. The difference between the two is the way the mud opens. You think of these nonsense things as if they weren't nonsense. Child also philosophizes, only without fear of being wrong. Suddenly a familiar shape, the merchant alone pulling the cart with a counting effort. Of course he wanted to pass here before the rain. Who doesn't? The crow's throat decides how the day of many people ends. You hold your breath by bottle cap hunter reflex. The soldiers do what soldiers do when the world is narrow and haste is hungry. They stop in front. Short conversation, shorter hand, single question. What do you have there? Answer. Thing that pays tithe. They laugh at the size of the other's courage. You close your hand on the apple as if fruit became a sword. It doesn't. You are small. The apple too. Good thing curiosity pays no tax. You don't laugh. The blood discovered it knows how to trot. The merchant tries to speak with the safety of someone who has already been robbed in another way and survived. He points to coin, says little, tries the argument that worked in the morning. There is mass. Soldier doesn't like mass when working, likes purse. One takes the bag from the other's belt and ties the merchant's cart with rope of abuse. The cart protests. Wood is the only thing that speaks the truth. In this moment, you sink your body into the earth until you become an insect. Fear is this, becoming smaller to fit in a place where nobody sees you. You hear words with teeth, passage tax, officer's order. Today, nobody passes without joy. Joy became an ugly synonym for pain in others. The merchant stretches his hand, offers what he has, tries to close the deal in controlled loss. Controlled loss is adult doctrine. Soldier kicks the ruler of the account. What was less becomes everything, and everything here fits in a leather bag. The heart makes noise. On the outside you hold. One of them gives a shove that wasn't thought to hurt, just to teach hierarchy. Hurts just the same. The merchant trips on the edge of the throat and chooses to fall in the only place where the body doesn't learn to cushion. Pride. You know the name of this sound? The whole village knows. It is the sound of "it won't get better." One of them decides to search more in the cart, sticks his hand underneath, finds a false pocket, smiles. The smile is the cheapest weapon in the arsenal. You decide you hate the smile of someone finding a false pocket. Promise you will never have one. Childish promises are stronger than they seem. The wind changes, bad smell. Time to go back. You decide you saw enough. The scene has a repeated ending in all villages of the world. Who has boots takes, who has cart loses. Who has eyes learns. You have eyes and legs. You wait for the soldiers to turn their heads to the side and turn your body down without making noise. Slide like someone who trained in a dream. Descend half the slope with gravity in your favor and against your knees. At the foot of the hill, the village returns to being your friend. The known stone accepts your foot. The old mud recognizes you. The wind blows in the good direction. Even the fishmonger from afar looks like a good guy for 2 seconds. You run with the whole secret beating inside your mouth, running more than fear of falling, running with an objective that has no big word, Dad. It is the first time in the day you use the word as destination, not just as person. Dad is a house that walks and you need to enter. And that is how the afternoon resolves to switch the camera owner. You pass the tavern, the stall, the church door, the churchyard. Everything becomes a polished blur. In the background, the world makes noise. Inside, you discover you also know how. Breath runs, heart beats loud, leg obeys. You turn the house corner and almost tear the door from the place. Dad. The word comes out in pieces. They work. He understands without hearing right. You don't know where to start explaining. The mouth answers for the body, soldier, road, merchant, everything. Your father gets up with the weight of someone getting up every day. His look does the account of what you didn't say. Adult has this thing of adding silence. You like when he does that. Saves breath. He holds your shoulders with the firmness of someone avoiding an earthquake. Breathe slowly. You try to obey. Slowly is adult language. Child speaks now. The now continues in your leg, waiting for another start. Where? He asks. You point. Crow's throat. He understands it is far enough to hurt and near enough to go. Your mother delivers the salt like someone delivering a mission. Don't forget. Nobody laughed. Salt became a sacred word around here, keeps broth and house. You shake your head like someone promising not to let the world fall. You don't have that power, but promising is a cheap toy that works for 5 minutes. Sometimes 5 minutes save a small life. You leave together. You with leg, he with big step. The house stays with the smell of broth and the hope of a door. The way to the road looks different when Dad is together. The landscape seems to obey more. The stones stop wanting to trip. The mud becomes a thing one crosses, not that swallows you. It is impressive what an adult does with the scenery. Maybe it is just your fear saying thank you. In the middle of the ascent, you think of a silly and good thing. When you grow up, you will walk like him, with the certainty of someone who knows where to put the foot, even when the ground doesn't want to. You keep the thought in a pocket that only opens at night when the village body falls asleep and the head wanders. The road arrives. It isn't yours, but it serves. You point the exact place with the geographic conviction of someone who is a guide for a day. Far away, the soldiers are now few, or seem to be. One of them sits on the bank and plays with a rope. Another searches the merchant's cart. The merchant is not standing. He is the way the world leaves those who had no choice. Your father holds the air the way an adult holds when he doesn't want to scream. You notice because you live with this language since forever. He tells you to stay behind a stone. You obey. Obeying is sometimes an extreme sport. You observe his shadow elongating until touching the scene. The shadow is brave, goes before. He arrives after. Short conversation, words you don't hear, gestures you don't want to learn. The soldier gets up as if boredom had tired. The merchant's body decides that staying on the ground hurts less. You grab the edge of the stone until it understands you are part of the scenery. You want to be the plant nobody sees, the animal nobody hunts, the hand nobody holds. Your hand sweats, the stone drinks, the wind changes, throws at you a smell of iron that the blacksmith would call by the right name. You don't want to know. The brain creates an escape plan that includes flying. The body remembers it has a knee. You follow in disagreement. Suddenly, the soldiers decide the throat yielded what it could. Low laughter, full bag, legs for boots. They take what remained useful and the rest of your will not to hate. Leave in a rhythm you learn by mimicry. That is how those who pay no bills walk. You glue your forehead to the stone until you are sure the landscape returned to belonging to the village. The sound of boots disappears like good news, too fast. Your father bends down near the merchant. The merchant still breathes. You learn to recognize this almost sound. Your father speaks his name twice. The merchant responds with a movement that looks like it hurt. Then your father turns. The face is urgent. Go call help. Help in this place is people. No other type exists. You run before father orders because sometimes obedience anticipates. It is the only time it doesn't give a scolding. The descent is more dangerous than the ascent. Gravity wants to teach you intimacy with the ground. You negotiate. I arrive whole. You drop me another day. Reasonable pact. You slide where possible, grab where remains, remember where mud pretends to be stone, and fall where the body accepts. At the end, you still have child breath and adult urgency. The village appears like someone who knew nothing and really didn't. You invade the market with the noise of someone not asking permission from the air. The priest, who was nearby, understood from the first movement. He has talent to translate panic. The merchant who should be here is there, and everyone who buys from him understood the math of losing a supplier. Emotional mathematics is a mandatory subject around here. You pull the arm of the first one who has an arm and goodwill, the blacksmith. Come. The blacksmith comes bringing a cloth that was once a banner of nothing. The fishmonger comes too, not for love of the merchant, but for love of his own business. Good shame and decent interest walk together in the village. Two women appear with strips of cloth. Nobody asks why, they ask where. On the way, you become official guide. It is a promotion that lasts 15 minutes and then vanishes. Every promotion in the village is like that. You point the throat, explain the detours, plant your foot where it counts. The priest follows with the cloak that has no haste and the face of someone who always arrives, even when arriving late. The group's haste is almost pretty. Arriving, you see your father where you left him. He gives you a look that says thank you and after at the same time. The people spread out through roles everyone knows without a manual. The blacksmith lifts, the fishmonger holds, the priest speaks low, the women tie what can be tied, the salt owner appears without being called. Salt is also a bandage here. The merchant opens his eyes for seconds just to confirm that the world in fact continues. You learn in 2 minutes that the body has many places where it can hurt. The village becomes a hospital without walls. Cloth, water, word, and silence. Someone asks, "Who did this?" Another person answers, "Soldier." The phrase causes neither surprise nor theatrical indignation, causes logistical operation. Separate the amphorae back to the altar, see what remained of the cart. Decide who sleeps where tonight. Justice, if it comes, will come by letter, slow and illiterate. Nobody expects it. The village learned not to stand at the door, waiting for the future. Your father calls you with a gesture. "Go ahead, tell your mother I'm delaying." He adds with the precision of someone who knows what saves a fight with the salt. You hold the package as if holding a peace agreement. It is light. Everything that saves marriage weighs little. You go down again now with another haste, that of the news that needs to turn into soup. Along the way, the market has already closed half the voices. The sun found a place to fall where nobody trips. Children still run, because children don't consult the newspaper. It is a relief to see that childhood has no fiscal counsel. You arrive home with your chest like a drum. Your mother opens before you knock. She has that talent of guessing melodies just by hearing the step. He is coming with people. And the salt. You lift the package. Modest victory, but victory. Half the world sustains itself like this. She hands you the plate with the haste of someone knowing the belly disturbs the brain. Eat. Between one spoonful and another. You pour out the images with the logic of someone assembling the cart in motion. Road, soldier, cart, rope, fall, help. She arranges the pieces inside her eye, the way mothers arrange. Stands up because in a poor village, nobody sits while the story doesn't end. And story here only ends when everyone returns alive, almost everyone. In the end, you feel the body ask for pause, not out of guilt, but out of roof. Child tires like someone discovering they are people. You keep a last piece of information for the following day, because every small hero has the right to a cliffhanger. I know where they return. Your mother looks at you with that mix of pride and fear every adult practices. Tomorrow, no. You shrink the yes to fit in the no. And it is at this hour the story prepares to change owners. The sound on the road that was already coming from afar brings a sequence of steps you know by inheritance. The weight of your father, the breathing of someone who did more than he could, the low comment of the priest, the shaking of something that shouldn't shake. The door changes position, like someone getting ready to receive a visit they didn't want. The boy enters the house as if the wind pushed together. The face is the same as when he breaks a plate. Mix of fright and urgency. You understand before his mouth settles. Child doesn't need to finish sentence when the world finishes first. Soldier, merchant, fell. 3 words, each carrying the weight of a whole village. You drop what you were doing. Spoon, plate, rest, and leave. The body decides before judgment. Your wife tries to speak, but her look understands that today there is no speech, only direction. She hands the salt like someone giving a blessing. Take it. You take it even without knowing for what. It is the kind of thing destiny does to amuse itself. The path to the road seems longer when fear goes in front. The boy tries to follow you, tripping on his own breath. You speak the basic, behind me. He obeys, which is what one does when the world decides to teach geography with tragedy. The sun doesn't know if it is late or punishment. In the middle of the ascent, the village looks small, beautiful from afar, like almost everything that gives work close up. Arriving, and what the boy said was little. The merchant is there, lying with the body made a map of tiredness. The cart turned on its side, the merchandise scattered, the coins mixed with mud. The only treasure the earth didn't want to swallow. You recognize the sound of nothing, that silence we hear when the worst has already resolved to speak. You kneel, touch the ground near him without courage to touch him. The priest arrives right behind, breathing the same, because always here he prays softly, not to save, but to occupy the space. Faith sometimes is the curtain we close not to see the room. Your eye falls on a single coin, in the corner, half clean, half mud. You don't pick it up right away. First look to the sides as if destiny were a taxman. The priest is distracted with God. The boy is distracted with fear. The coin remains there with the insistent shine of someone wanting to change owners. You pick it up not out of greed. You have no training for that, but out of reflex of someone knowing every copper is a piece of bread. And bread here accepts no moral discourse. The coin is small, cold, and carries life's favorite irony, worth more in the pocket than in the sermon. You put it away slowly. If anyone asks, you can still say it was out of remembrance. Pious lie. God accepts. The priest finishes the prayer for you. It was a soldier. You shake your head, the kind of agreement that resolves nothing. Soldier is a chronic disease, never disappears, only changes name. The blacksmith arrives, the fishmonger arrives, the village arrives. Everyone arrives when it is already late. The most constant punctuality of the place. The merchant's body is placed on a cloth, improvised respect, the kind poverty invented to not look like inhumanity. You help lift the cart. Wood groans, muscle complains, the son decides to watch. The priest speaks of justice, someone answers with silence. Justice is a theoretical subject around here. What can be done is the basic. Gather what remained, push back to the village and pretend tomorrow won't repeat. Repeating is a medieval sport. Halfway, the boy walks by your side. He looks at you the way someone wants to know if the world fixes. You answer with the only possible yes, the one that doesn't speak. The wind blows on the face, and the coin inside the pocket weighs like small guilt. The only one we can handle carrying. When the village appears again, it seems smaller than in the morning. Everything looks smaller after fear passes and the bill remains. The priest goes to the church. The women appear in the doors. The men look at the ground. The bell feigns sadness, each in their role. You remain the one who survives to tell. The house receives you with the same noise as always. The smell of broth. The creak of the door. The wife's sigh. Everything equal except you. She asks with her eyes. You answer with an "it was" that already carries everything. She understands because understanding without detail is what marriage teaches best. The boy pretends to eat, but his look eats the floor. You know the taste. You take off your boots at the door. The mud makes the most honest noise of the day. The body asks for pause, but the head insists on asking questions nobody will answer. Why the soldier? Why him? Why always the same ones? You know the answers and prefer not to repeat them. The village already has enough echo. Outside, the priest passes praying, the cloak swaying with the authority of someone trying to sow the invisible. You respect not out of faith, but out of manners. Faith runs scarce, manners still yield a little. The soup is hot. The bread is the same as yesterday, disguised again. You eat slowly, not out of habit, but out of strategy. If you chew slowly, the day takes less time to end. The woman adjusts the kerchief, the boy plays with the spoon, and silence becomes furniture. Outside, the bell tolls, the same sound as morning, only more tired. The village answers the way it knows, closing windows, extinguishing fires, pushing tomorrow to later. The sound of the bell is always the same, only the quantity of people who hear changes. You lean on the wall and breathe. The coin in the pocket is still there, cold, patient, a reminder that the world is a market where even bad luck has change. You think about returning it to the altar tomorrow to sleep lighter. You know you won't. Tomorrow is another type of weight. The soup ends, the fire goes out, the silence returns. You look at your wife, the boy, the ceiling, everything remains in place, which is almost a miracle. And you understand, like every peasant understands too early. One does not live expecting the sky to open. One lives guaranteeing the roof doesn't fall before. Outside, the bell gives the last touch, and the obedient village retires for one more equal night. Tomorrow everything restarts. The bell, the fair, the scolding, the hunger. Only the mud continues knowing the way. Night descended on the village like someone blowing out a candle slowly, blowing from the edge. The sky is a thick lid without stars, the kind that weighs on top of the roof. The fair turned to shadow, the stalls, skeletons of soaked wood. The smell of the afternoon is still in the air, a mixture of tired fish, spilled wine, and diluted guilt. The main street, the same where the day began, is now a line of trampled clay. And on it the six, or what remained of them, pass one by one the way destiny teaches, without looking to the sides, as if every step were a secret. The peasant comes first. Shoulders curved, dark face, hands that still keep the cold of the coin. Walks slowly, the body saying, "I did what I could." Behind him, the wife of the twisted kerchief and firm look carries an empty basket and the sensation that the world weighs equal inside or outside the house. The boy follows in her shadow with the restless step of someone who ran too much for the size of his legs, looks at the ground and thinks the ground looks back. The priest appears right after, heavy cloak, eyes that can't decide between the sky and the ground, murmurs a short prayer, not out of pity but to occupy the air. The merchant comes too, although not by will. Two men carry him on a cloth, wrapped body, covered face. The day's commerce ended with the full stock of irony. Sold everything, including his own breath. The bell tolls, the same sound as morning, but now without hope of being news. The notes echo through closed windows, hitting lightly on walls, on faces, on guilts. It is the kind of sound that announces nothing, only confirms what everyone already knows, that tomorrow will be the same. The square before noisy is now a still painting. The merchant's cart still leaning, the barrel turned, the awning dripping drop by drop. The priest stops near, makes the sign of the cross, and every drop from the awning seems to answer, Amen. The boy holds his mother's hand. She doesn't squeeze back, but doesn't let go either. The peasant looks at the ground like someone looking for something to believe. The sky offers nothing, and nothing is the most stable currency of the era. A dog passes, sniffs, decides nothing there is his, and leaves. The only one with true freedom. The bell insists. The sound mixes with the wind, the smell of cold soup, the collective tiredness. And when the last chime fades, the whole village seems to hold the air, not out of respect, but out of habit. Silence. Then everything returns to moving. The priest returns to the altar, the woman to the broth, the boy to sleep, the peasant to the roof that hasn't fallen yet. The merchant stays, the bell rests, the mud spreads. Democratic. And so the hamlet prepares for one more equal dawn. The same steps, the same faces, the same fears, only the earth changes place. Good night, tired listener, and until the next, sleep with a tired story.